Thank you for tuning into the first episode of the Analysis Zone. I am your host, Ophelia. Here we will delve into different topics and discuss our thoughts on them. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, which is on the basics of sharks, what makes them different from other fish, some unusual species, and sharks in pop culture. So, a little background, I am an undergraduate engineering student, and this past year I was involved in physics research over Martian clouds in the atmosphere. As I was researching, I started realizing that I do really enjoy reading about a topic, taking notes, and then sharing it with other people. This year I went to 3 research conventions where I presented a poster on Martian clouds, and it was exciting not only talking about my topic, but listening to other people talk about theirs. I just really found it exciting, so I knew that I needed to start a podcast so that I can yap some more. Now I do plan to talk about Martian clouds in a future episode. I just felt that the first episode of this podcast needed to be about sharks. Everybody who knows me knows that sharks are very important to me, and I actually plan to use my engineering degree to support sharks in some way in the future. So today it's all about shark basics. I'm no shark expert. I will never claim to be, but I will try my best to hold back my excitement so you don't have to listen to my heavy breathing through the microphone. I'm a little bit nervous about this first episode, but we're just going to get through it and see how it goes. So excuse my heavy breathing. Alright, let's start on the basics. Our toothy friends are classified as cartilaginous fishes, which has a Latin name that I cannot pronounce. Shark skeletons are comprised of cartilage, and that is why they are categorized this way. How do we know that a fish is a shark by looking at it? Because sure, there are some pictures I have seen of a shark that is obviously a shark, but there are also images that are not so obvious. There has to be a set of rules that helps in identifying them, and luckily there is. There are 8 features for identifying sharks, so I'm going to list them out. We'll start with number 1 is, of course, what we just discussed before, that the skeletons are made of cartilage. We can't know the skeleton is made of cartilage from looking at a fish from the outside, so we have 7 more features that can help us identify one. The second feature is that sharks have 5 exposed gill slits. On bony fish, the gills are hidden behind a bone plate, so we can't see them. On sharks, we can clearly see that they have gills, and they always have 5. There are a few species of sharks that have 6 or 7 gill slits, like the broad-nosed 7-gill shark, but for the most part, all species have 5. Third, a shark has rigid pectoral fins, meaning that the fins that are on the sides of the shark have no range of motion. They sit stationary on the shark and are used like a rudder on a boat, while the side fins on bony fish have a wide range of motion. The most well-known feature of a shark is the serial teeth replacement. When sharks lose their teeth, new ones move forward to take its place. Sharks lose teeth constantly throughout their lives, and is actually one of the only fossil records of sharks available, since their skeletons are made of cartilage. Cartilage just doesn't stick around to fossilize. Sharks also have what is called dermal denticles, which are tiny tooth-like scales that run all over the body. These dermal denticles help fight against parasites and prevent injury and disease. Depending on the shark species and its needs, dermal denticles can be closely packed together or more spread out over the body. People who have touched sharks have described it as feeling like sandpaper. One interesting fact about sharks is the fact that females actually have thicker skins than the males, because typically during mating, the males will bite onto the females, and this can cause injury. Having thicker skin helps fight against injury. Sharks have heterocercal tails, which means that the upper lobe of the tail fin is longer than the lower lobe. The vertebral column also extends into the upper lobe. Instead of being called a tail fin, it is often referred to as the caudal fin. Number 7. During mating, sharks use internal fertilization. Males have 2 claspers down next to the pelvic fins and use one to insert into a female, which then inflates and fertilizes. Sharks have a few different ways of reproducing, but it starts out first with internal fertilization. The last feature in a shark is that they have large oily livers. Instead of swim bladders, sharks use their livers to help them stay buoyant. The oil in the liver is called squalene and is less dense than water, which allows the shark to stay afloat. All 8 features will help you in identifying whether or not a certain fish is a shark. Now, sharks have been around for a long time. The first species of sharks, called Cladosolaki, appeared about 400 million years ago. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. I had to search up the pronunciation before this recording, and I found a YouTube video that said it a few times, so hopefully I said it right. The shark was the first of many species of sharks to appear, and our modern day sharks evolved about 250 to 200 million years ago. I think in the future I will do an episode on prehistoric sharks, so we won't talk more about the evolution of sharks right now. It's just important to know that they have been around a very long time. I will say that I do want to go to a dig site somewhere and search for prehistoric shark teeth. I need a megalodon tooth. Actually, I want to dig not just for shark teeth, but all kinds of other fossils. It would be pretty cool to have some fossils like on my desk or something. Prehistoric animals have always intrigued me. At 8 years old, I was really into museums and books and animals, and my love for sharks started when my grandparents took me to a natural history museum in Arizona. At this museum, they had safari animal taxidermy, and there was a little corner on sharks. I was, of course, enthralled by the shark exhibit and the information they had on megalodons. Since then, I wanted to learn more, and I was determined that I was going to be a marine biologist and swim with sharks. Anyways, I will do more about the evolution of sharks, just today is going to be about basics. Okay, so sharks have been around for a long time and have evolved to be great predators. So sharks have fine-tuned their senses to hunt better in their respective environments. There are actually a lot of misconceptions about sharks' abilities, so let's get into it. I am first going to talk about a shark's sense of hearing. Hearing is the longest distance sense the shark has, detecting between 10 hertz and 1000 hertz from miles away. For context, humans normally hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Sharks detect lower frequency sounds better, and sharks have internal ears where the brain is. We don't ever hear too much about sharks' sense of hearing. The sense that is most interesting to me and others, and that we mostly hear quite often, is their sense of smell. Since I was a kid, I had always been told that sharks can smell a drop of blood from a mile away. This is true, but there are a few missing holes here. Some people think that if they get in the water and get a cut and blood is drawn, a shark can smell that and is on its way to come eat you. No, sharks can smell a drop of blood from a mile away, but the scent trail of the drop of blood has to travel a mile to the shark before the shark knows about it. Scent travels differently in water than in air because water is so dense. This means that scent travels much slower and also sticks around longer. Sharks don't react to human blood, they react to fish blood, which is their normal and preferred food source. I think my favorite part of learning about sharks' sense of smell is how sharks follow a scent trail. They move side to side in a zigzag direction over a scent trail and use their nares on their snout to close in on the direction of the scent path. I think it is super cute, and I never knew about it before, so every time I see a video and the shark is zigging and zagging, I will know why. Another sense a shark has is the sense of taste. Pop culture makes it out to seem that sharks love the taste of human, and of course, that isn't true. A shark uses its taste buds to identify if what they are biting or tasting is a good food source. So no need to worry about that. We are not a food source and would be an unfamiliar taste to a shark. Let's talk about sharks' eyesight, or photoreception. Sharks have lateral side eyes, which give them an almost 360-degree view, with 2 blind spots being at the very front of the snout and directly behind the tail. There are a few species of sharks, among carpet sharks, that have eyes on the dorsal side or the top side of their bodies, and they also are able to see everything except what is beneath them. Sharks also have built-in eye protection. Certain subclasses of sharks have different ways of protecting their eyes. Like the great white shark is able to roll its eyes back 180 degrees to show the back of the eye covered in cartilage. I'm sure if you've seen videos of the great white shark attacking or breaching the water, you'll see that it rolls its eyes back and there's just white. That's the cartilage that you're seeing. Other sharks, like the tiger shark, have hardened eyelids that are covered in dermal denticles that can slide up over the eye. Other species can retract their eyes more into the eye socket to prevent injury as well. Sharks also can sense vibrations and movement with the use of their lateral lines. Lateral lines run from the head to about right before the tail. Along the lateral line is little sensory nerves that the shark can use to detect movement. It is like being able to touch from a distance. This is limited to shorter distances though. Sharks also have a sixth sense called electroreception. If you look at some pictures of sharks, you might notice that on the nose there are some large pores there. These pores do have a purpose that you might find crazy. So sharks use electroreception to detect electrical fields, muscle contractions, and even heart contractions. Inside those pores on the snout of the shark are gel-filled sacs that conduct electricity called ampullae of Lorenzini. A shark can sense prey without smelling, hearing, or seeing it. This also is limited to a more direct, short distance, but is still very cool, especially when thinking about how a shark uses all six senses while hunting for prey. So now we know how to identify a shark and how they use their senses to hunt. So it is time to get into the weirder species. Before we do that, though, I want to make sure you know a term that I will bring up a few times for certain species. This term is endothermic. So many shark species that are endothermic, which is a small amount, use a counter-current exchanger system to stay warm. Sharks that are endothermic are able to regulate their body temperature and remain a little warmer than the ocean around them. This is done through their counter-current exchanger system, which is when two blood vessels flow next to each other in opposite directions, so colder blood runs next to warmer blood. The warmer blood warms the colder blood through heat transfer, which keeps the shark warm. This allows for sharks like the great white shark to travel into colder waters to hunt animals like the elephant seal. Okay, let's talk about some weirder types of sharks that aren't so mainstream. The first one that I'm going to get into is the thresher shark. Now, the thresher shark may or may not be a shark you have heard of before. They are easily identifiable by their unusual tail that has a very long whip-like upper lobe. I like the thresher shark because some pictures of them look like they are very confused. It's relatable. There are 3 recognized species of thresher, and they are called the common thresher, the big-eye thresher, and the pelagic thresher. For this section, I will focus on the common thresher. Threshers are generally seen with the top half of their bodies being a blue or black color that merges into a white color underneath. These threshers grow very slow, but they can get up to 18 feet in length, which includes their long tail fin. The other species of threshers seem to be around 13 feet. The lengths of the sharks vary, and I have seen sources differ on that. Thresher sharks are endothermic, like we were talking about before, and threshers are migratory sharks, so they travel seasonally based on temperature changes. The common thresher seems to like the Pacific Islands and the west coast of the United States, and their gestation period, or the time it takes for 2 to 4 baby sharks to grow in the uterus, is about 9 months. I think the coolest thing about the thresher shark is that its tail isn't just for looks. There are videos of threshers speeding through the water and whipping their tails at prey, which are normally small fish, in order to stun them and then eat them. I think that's so crazy. Like, can you imagine just being a little anchovy, just minding your business, trying to get home, and then you get stun whipped out of nowhere? And then you get eaten? I mean, I guess if you were a small little fish, that would sound really dangerous. But as a human, there is less concern, okay? As threshers haven't been known to have attacked people and are actually pretty shy. Alright, we talked a little bit about the thresher. So maybe you're thinking right now, the thresher shark isn't that weird. It just has a few unique features. So show me something that's actually weird, okay? So to that, I raise you the goblin shark. He is definitely a weird sea puppy. In sources, I see different numbers for lengths, but roughly the goblin shark gets from 9 to 20 feet in length. I'm sure these values vary, especially since the goblin shark is a deep sea dwelling fish and would need sufficient food sources to accommodate the energy expenditure of a large shark. The goblin shark is a translucent shark that to us can be described as grayish, pale white, or even pink because of being able to see the blood vessels. If you look at images of the goblin shark, you will notice that they have really long pointed noses and small sharp pointed teeth. Some images will show the jaw protruding, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the species. They are adapted to the cold, dark depths of the ocean and have evolved to use their senses to catch prey while also using low energy. Sharks are extremely slow so that they don't use up too much energy while swimming. And remember how sharks can use ampullae papillae of Lorenzini, which are in those gel-filled pores on the snout to detect electrical fields and muscle contractions. Well, the goblin shark has a high density of them on their nose, so it can capture prey with high accuracy. What also helps it be even more efficient is that the jaws of the goblin shark can protrude out to catch prey even quicker. Goblin sharks are able to dive to extreme depths, but are found in around 900 to 3,000 feet, with one even being seen around 6,000 feet. So, for context, Titanic sits at 12,500 feet. It's like the halfway point. Next up, we have the swell shark. He's a swell little guy, but that is not why he is called the swell shark. Swell sharks are covered in brown and white blotches and are a yellowish brown. They grow up to about 3 feet in length and are coastal sharks that like to inhabit little rock caves around the coast of California down into the south of Mexico. They hide out in their hidey holes during the day and at night leave to hunt. They're nocturnal predators. Their prey consists of small fish and crustaceans. And the best part of the swell shark is that when threatened, swell sharks will fold themselves into a U shape and bite onto their tails, and then they will gulp down water to inflate themselves to twice their size. This makes it difficult for predators to bite them as well as evict them out of their hidey holes. We do love an introverted hermit. Apparently, when they expel the water back out, it sounds like a dog bark. What is even cooler is that when they are brought to the surface, they also can inflate themselves with air too. So not just water, but also air. Alright, so while I was reading about the swell shark, there was this insane part of an article that made me just laugh because it's just so insane. I just have to read you the quote about the swell shark. It states that it only gets aggressive when stepped on or harassed and may inflict a superficial wound. And it, like, if you really think about it, like, it's just so funny to think of somebody stepping on a swell shark. Like, that happened at some point. And it's so funny to think of the swell shark minding its own business and getting stepped on and then being super pissed off about it. Like, of course it's going to be aggressive. It was just funny to me. So, yeah. I need to create an image of a swell shark with little black stick figure arms on its hips being upset. The swell shark is becoming my favorite just because of its temperament. Swell sharks are not antisocial though, and will hang out in groups of other swell sharks. So, yeah. You know, the swell shark reminds me of myself, just angry, elusive, and chill with his little swell shark buddies. The social behaviors of sharks are pretty interesting, but I think I'd like to look more into it before I talk about it on another episode. So that wraps up some of our stranger sharks. I am going to talk about one more shark, which has been my favorite for a little while now, but maybe a little mainstream. And that shark is the short fin mako shark. So when I think of my favorite shark, this is the one I always think of, although since reading for this podcast episode, the swell shark is looking to steal its place. So the short-fin mako shark is an oceanic shark that has a sleek torpedo-like body. It is a deep blue color on top that merges into a white on its underside, and it can be metallic on its sides. It can be mistaken for a great white at times, but what can help differentiate between the two is that the mako shark has long pointed teeth, while the white shark has pointed triangular teeth. The mako also has a large black eye on the lateral sides of its head. This shark can get up to about 12 feet and is also endothermic, which is why it is able to travel far distances into warm and cold waters. This shark is the fastest shark in the ocean, swimming at speeds of roughly 45 miles per hour. It would be the fastest fish in the world, but the sailfish has it beat with a record of 68 miles per hour. I mean, just kind of think of that, like a shark going 45 miles per hour. I can't even fathom that. So, due to its speed and dermal denticle orientation, that allows for reduced drag and increased lift. So, its dermal denticle design has influenced, inspired, and helped in the design of airplanes, which is pretty cool just because of its reduced drag and increased lift. I think the short-fin mako shark is a beautiful, sleek shark, but who knows? The swell shark is looking to take its place as the best shark, in my opinion. So, I don't know. So, now you know a little bit of information about some lesser-known shark species. I can't talk sharks and not bring up the challenges that shark species are facing today. The sharks that I brought up today are either endangered or vulnerable. due to overfishing. Many sharks are fished for their fins, for shark fin soup. Although as conservation efforts are bringing these issues to light, shark fin soup is slowly declining in demand. With that being said, sharks are still caught as bycatch. And bycatch is just when the fishing industry is just fishing in general and they happen to also catch sharks. So the swell shark is doing well, as nobody really likes the way that they taste, but they also are caught as bycatch in commercial lobster and crab traps. So sharks are being overfished and aren't able to reproduce enough to counteract those effects. Many sharks take years to reach sexual maturity and have long gestation periods, with some sharks' pregnancy periods lasting years. What happens when the shark numbers keep declining? Well, sharks keep the food web balanced, and the decline of sharks negatively affects the ecosystem. For example, the absence of sharks hurt the coral reefs. Without sharks eating certain fish, those fish go and overeat herbivores who eat certain algae that, if overgrown, can hurt those reefs. Other effects can occur, but that is just one example. It's hard to believe, but coral reefs disappearing can affect us as humans. Without coral reefs, many marine animals will vanish, meaning no fish for the fishing industry to catch. And close to 1 billion people depend on this for food and their livelihoods. Also, the coral reefs act as a protection to the coastlines. No coral reefs mean that the coast would get dealt a lot of damage from harsh waves, and coastal towns could be flooded. We would also lose important scientific research for medicines that could be vital in curing diseases like cancer. Lastly, there would be less oxygen, as 50% of the oxygen on Earth comes from the ocean, from photosynthesizing planktons, algae, and bacteria. Although this doesn't come directly from the coral reefs, a healthy coral reef supports a healthy ocean and healthy photosynthesizing animals. So sharks play a very key role in the food web and the health of the ocean. Conservation efforts that responsibly support sharks are important and critical. So before we end this episode, I want to briefly talk about the portrayal of sharks in pop culture. I think when everybody talks about sharks, it's always about shark movies. And I love shark movies, especially bad shark movies. I think they're a lot of fun and very entertaining. I've watched the movie Jaws thousands of times, especially when I was like 8 years old, because that's when I really got into sharks. So I've watched the movie thousands of times. And also, by the way, this year is the 50th anniversary of the movie Jaws. So I've already watched it a few times this year alone. So it is definitely a favorite of mine. So when that movie came out, it deterred people away from the ocean, and people really feared sharks. It was like the only good shark was a dead shark for some people. So the movie really demonizes sharks, and I have seen this in a few other films too, like the movie Anaconda and even Twister. Both those movies demonize anacondas and tornadoes and personify them. Anaconda, the movie, makes the snake out to be an animal that strangles and swallows its prey whole for its own enjoyment. And at one point, the snake even regurgitates someone so it can go after another. Tornadoes are dangerous and deal a lot of destruction, but they are not thinking or living. So, in the movie Jaws, the shark Bruce comes into the waters of Amity Island to feast on any person who ventures into the ocean. He bites, destroys, and sinks boats just to get to the humans inside them. The behavior of the great white shark is completely inaccurate and just straight fiction. In the film, Bruce is a 25-foot great white that's just hungry for human. In reality, great whites tend to reach about 20 feet in length and prefer their usual food source of fish and fat, juicy seals. The times that white sharks have attacked humans has usually been due to mistaken identity during an exploratory bite. These large sharks, after tasting us, will usually retreat, but us humans are fragile, so an exploratory bite can be damaging and even fatal. We are an unusual taste to a great white. These sharks need food sources that can sustain them for long periods of time of fasting and give them the energy they need to regulate their body temperatures. We simply just cannot sustain them. So instead of wasting energy to eat a food source that won't sustain them in the way they need, it isn't even worth trying to eat us, but to instead eat an elephant seal that has fat blubber on its body. It is also important to remember that sharks are just like other dangerous animals around the world who are just looking to survive. An attack isn't out of malice or evilness, but out of opportunity. In the movie Jaws, one of the main characters named Matt Hooper, who was the shark expert, talks about his theory on territoriality, where he believes that Bruce had found that the beaches at Amity Island were supplying a sufficient food source that he would keep coming back to feed there as long as there was food in the water, even going as far to say that Bruce would defend that area too. There's no scientific evidence to support that. Sharks can be opportunistic and come back to certain areas that have supplied food before, but sharks are not looking for humans in the water to eat. This movie shouldn't be seen as an accurate representation of shark behavior, but just an entertaining horror movie. I absolutely love shark movies, and I think they're great. I don't know what else to say about them. I think they're fun. It's not supposed to be an accurate representation of sharks. So, another favorite of mine would have to be Deep Blue Sea, a film about scientists who genetically engineer a group of mako sharks in an underwater facility to grow bigger so they can harvest large amounts of chemicals in the brain, which is also so that they can help cure Alzheimer's. Of course, the sharks become smarter and break free and start eating everyone. So I like this film, of course, because they are mako sharks. I don't really see many mako sharks in horror movies. So it's a great film, but there's not scientific accuracy there at all. Sometimes it's just fun to watch. Some movies can get pretty crazy, like one called Dam Sharks, which basically sharks kill humans and use their body parts to create a dam like a beaver would. It's literally so insane. I did like that one though. I recommend for its absurdity. So I hope that you learned some new things about sharks and maybe see sharks in a different light from what pop culture portrays them as. I had a lot of fun reading for this episode, and I actually took a whole course online in preparation for this episode because I just wanted to know as much as possible. I will definitely expand on the things that I talked about today in later episodes in hopefully more detail. I will link my sources in the description box if you want to read more about these amazing creatures. And please let me know in the comments your thoughts on sharks and tell me what your favorite shark movie is. Also, let me know if there are any topics that you would like to hear more about. Next episode, I am going to cover a prehistoric animal called the Mosasaurus. So consider following the Analysis Zone podcast Instagram, and I hope to see you in the next one when I dive deep into the world of the Mosasaurus.